I've been taking Muay Thai for about 2 years now, and today we are going to talk about exactly what I've learned along the way. I did one of these when I had marked a year of taking Muay Thai. I compared to sparring when I first walked into this gym right here, and now we're going to do the same with year 2. So let's start off from ground zero and see if there's any mistakes that I noticed that I didn't notice then. Because of the karate background I had, we kind of had like a no catching kick policy. So anytime I threw a risky kick, I didn't necessarily take into consideration the risk that came from higher kicks that expose your back a bit more. My combos were kind of army, I wasn't throwing a ton of stuff into them, and I ate tons of leg kicks. Now, I don't think I was necessarily doing bad, like my timing and my distancing was pretty good. There was just some things that they did that I wasn't quite suited for. And being someone who loves martial arts in general, I want to be suited for a lot of things. These rounds with my coach Josh are kind of some good indicators of things that I was missing out on. You see there that I eat a kick and I try and throw a punch at the same time. I don't hate that. However, the way that I was doing it was tall, it was uncomfortable, and I was trying to use the same side hand. I think there's better ways to go about it now that I know a bit more. This exchange right here shows that I'm valuing touching my partner more than I am connecting, hence the bad, over-the-top punches. Also, my base is starting to get swept from underneath me because I'm trying to rush things now that I know that leg kick is coming. Always love the spinning back kick though. I'll take that. My first year was really heavily revolved around trying to be in my karate stance and then throw things that come from Muay Thai, like throw leg kicks, elbows, knees, try and sweep people. Some of which were successful, but I had a hard time because I was still in a pretty wide stance, which isn't necessarily the best for doing those things. There's a reason that from the stance you're in, you do what you do, because it makes the most sense. Along with that, my first year, sparring specifically, was trying to figure out how to mitigate the things that Muay Thai is so good at, like checking those leg kicks in different unique ways, because it's a little bit harder to pick up that lead leg. My base wasn't necessarily designed for Muay Thai, so a lot of the time I spent trying to kind of work ways around it. As a person who's a martial artist before I took Muay Thai, I felt like I kind of needed to try and empty my cup, but also I like being competitive, so I wanted to make sure that I could still do stuff that I was good at. As you can probably already tell here, I'm a fair amount square, I'm trying to catch kicks, I'm trying to implement a closer style of fighting. Naturally, I wasn't as good at it. There's a learning curve when it comes to anything, and part of that curve is being lower, and part of it is the slow graduation to getting an idea of something. End of year 1, I felt like I had some of the techniques down, but I didn't really understand the principles of why and when to do them. However, I felt more comfortable to try them than I had in the past, which is good because eventually it means that I'll learn when to do it. I kind of like this round, which was at the end of year 1, because I'm using a lot of things that I learned, I'm keeping my stance a little bit more, and I'm doing things that I'm better at, like feinting and being in and out. I'm still using kicks, and I'm still trying to be creative in my karate way, but in a way that kind of suits itself a little bit more towards a squarer style. The way that I'm checking is a little bit, it's not no effort, but it's lower effort than if I tried to pick my leg up from a sideways stance. This is about the time that I realized that I need to give Muay Thai power a bit more respect, but not too much that I couldn't do what I was better at. It took me until I was about 13 or 14 months into Muay Thai to really start to want to implement even a stylistic change of how I sparred, how I fought, how I trained. And in that, it felt like I got worse. There was a period of time where I was throwing stuff and I was like, man, like sparring wise, I feel like I've gotten worse. Timing, I feel like I've gotten worse. I feel like my kicks aren't as fast and I feel like I'm not as strong. So as a progression, it felt like I was like, oh, karate boy, like I know what I'm doing, to, oh no, about 6 months in, I'm like getting torn up by stuff. And then, oh, I fixed it a little bit. But then now I'm starting to go like into a little bit more of a Muay Thai stance, and now it's like crashing, like, oh, you don't know how to do that. As you start to get a better understanding at it, you realize that you're not as good as you thought you were. Yeah, it's probably a little bit of what it was now that I think about it. Here we are, end of year 2, present day. Right off the bat, I'm much more patient. I wanted to make a point to sit still a little bit more often. Now, like I mentioned though, me sitting still is not what I'm used to, And because of it, there's a transitional process. Great teep here. He threw me off balance, but you gotta jump back in. Now, this is something that I actually picked up on the more that I dealt with teeps, is just scooping that front leg. We'll see more of it later. Here I am trying to get into the clinch a bit. I'm trying to get comfortable. I'm trying to pull him off balance. Now, granted, there's a bit of a size difference here, but there's also a skill difference. I'd say he's much better than I am in this area, so I'm trying to get into the area. I'm trying to get better. Ooh-hoo-hoo! Or sorry, ooh-wee. Now watch, I touch the front foot, I spin, I kick. You'll see that again later. Along with getting better in the clinch, I also wanted to face punches better. Did a great job there. What I mean is I want to not have a knee-jerk reaction when punches come my way. I'd rather be more calm and collected than I was in the past. Also, I picked up a leg kick or two, okay? This guy that I'm sparring with, Mike, was in the original sparring video, the one from 2 years ago, but watch this right here. Sorry, Mike. Watch this right hand real quick, scoops the front leg, whoop, and then usually I spin afterwards, but there was no mic left. Sorry, Mike. One of the biggest things that I had to change to kind of like play the same way these guys play is to fix my weight distribution. Now, I'm always in a different type of stance, but I've tried to more so adopt a stance where I'm like them. I'm back leg heavy, I'm picking up my front leg, I'm checking stuff. I'm not always getting eaten up by leg kicks. Also, I found a lot of fun in parrying, blocking, and returning kicks of my own. That one got away from me a little bit, sorry about that. But as year 2 has come to a close, I feel way more comfortable now with things like the clinch and sweeps and keeping a good base and checking kicks and returning with kicks as well. My elbows are still a little iffy, but now that I understand that it's just one of those things that as you do it more and more, you get better at it. And that's everything. Muay Thai has been a style that has caught my attention a ton. I think that if I were to start over, I would still do karate first. I'm a hobbyist. I like to play around. I like to goof off. I like to punch and pretend that I am fighting somebody without getting hurt, ideally, you know? Muay Thai from the outside seems like a real tough and sturdy, like pain, like they're kicking bamboo stuff. It seems like that from the outside, but the more that you are in the environment, the more that you realize that the sparring is far more enjoyable than some of the other kickboxing styles. And it's much more of a chess match than you would realize. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm completely lost as a karate boy. For me, I am what you would call a martial arts hobbyist. I've been doing this my entire life. I've never really competed professionally, and I don't really have any plans to. Which means that I do martial arts for essentially 2 reasons. 1, because I enjoy the crap out of it. 2, to be as prepared as possible for a fight that I don't accept, one that is brought to me without my knowledge. If you are a person who is already a martial artist who is looking to get into Muay Thai, I recommend it. If you are someone who's brand spanking new, I think it's a pretty easy style to get into. It's a more square stance. It's not as athletically demanding as like a Taekwondo where you're doing high flying kicky tricks. You don't have to roll around like you would in wrestling. But then also the basics of Muay Thai are just the basics of striking in general. And also there's very little fat in Muay Thai. Elbows, knees, clinch, kicks. You're not doing a ton of flashy stuff, and very rarely will you be steered wrong by a Muay Thai instructor. So yeah, I'll see you guys in Muay Thai year 3, where hopefully by then I will have been to Thailand. Yeah, that's a good goal to have. Let's do that.